welcome to the Psychic Kitchen. We have Ingrid H. Turner of ingridhturner.com today. How's everyone doing today? Hello, Ingrid.
Hi, I'm doing
Hey,
amazing. How are you?
Waking up.
Waking up, okay.
We're shared out. Okay. Jimmy, I'll let you start off, my friends.
okay. Right, yeah, welcome Ingrid. Hello everyone. It's great to have you here, Ingrid. Would you like to start by just introducing yourself and letting us know who you are, what your story is, how did you get here? Feel free to just
Well, thank you, my
go with
dear.
the flow.
I'm so happy to be here. It was so nice to chat with you backstage, Jimmy, and get to know you a little bit. I know Thomas really, really well. We go way back, way deep. So it's so nice to connect with you. Thank you so much for having me on here, fellas. I'm really happy to be here. I am been looking forward to this all morning. and My name is Ingrid Turner. I am a psychic development teacher. I am a channel for divine spirit, psychic medium, healer. I wear all the hats like so many of us do. My primary focus nowadays is with the Bhava Spiritual Mission. That is a digital church that me and a group of my leaders founded. And we did that so that we had a structure to train people in developing their psychic and spiritual gifts. And through that church, we can certify and we can ordain ministers, people who are ready to step into spiritual leadership and take their gifts out into the world and do their part in taking us into the new earth, right? Moving through this paradigm shift. So that's been my primary focus. I also do readings, I do live streams, I kind of do all the things. And I have most recently been super focused on creativity and channeling and bringing through spirit in that capacity as well. I also travel full time. I am nomadic. I'm currently in Los Angeles, California. Endless sunshine, thank God. I have been in Nashville for a hot minute this winter, and it was colder than I expected. And that's fine, but happy for some sunshine, just bouncing around a little bit, excited about the spring. I actually like this time change. It's an illusion that I can get behind. So a day. Like it's fine. So that's a little bit of my story.
Okay, cool. And how did you get started in being a psychic medium, channeler, etc.?
Right.
As most people,
I- yeah. I love these stories. I love everybody's story whenever I hear mine is like mine's intense. Um It started when I realized I had a problem with alcohol. I was like so many people with spiritual gifts and sensitivities. Addiction was a path that I wandered down to see if that would fix my problems. It didn't. Just, zero stars, do not recommend. But that was sort of the start of the churning of my spiritual awakening. I have been a single mom, solo parent. I was working full time. I was trying to stuff myself into a box I just did not fit in. As you guys know, I think you guys probably done it, right? Like, okay, let me try to be normal. Didn't work out for me. So I had a break down and break through, and I went into a program to get myself sober off of alcohol. And I did that for about a year, and it was great. It helped me sort of reconnect with my spiritual foundation. But after about a year, I just had these rumblings. It's like, there's more. I don't know what it is, but there's more. As I was starting to peel away the bullshit that was not myself. It's like, there's more. And that's when I got involved in a shamanic healing circle. And that's when I had my big spiritual awakening. So I went from, professional marketing, technology, this cracking open during this event where I just completely became untethered, wide open to spirit. All my gifts came online. And it was like, okay, this is what I have to do. There was no choice at that point. It was like, you have to make this work because this has to be your life. You cannot silo this. You can't have separate, it's like you guys do this spiritual work like I do the spiritual work because we have to, right? It's not because like we want to, it's because we have to. Like I physically could not make myself do administrative or marketing or tech work. I was like, I can't. So I got to figure out how to make this work. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years. And my spiritual work has evolved greatly. It started out with just doing readings for people because I was like, look what I can do. Right. I always had these gifts. I didn't know I had these gifts. And so my work has evolved from, okay, we're going to do readings, we're going to do mediumship, to teaching people how to tap in and trust that gift that's already there. So I do a lot more teaching nowadays. Over the last decade or so, it's evolved to that degree. So that was a very intense experience. It untethered me for a couple of years. It did. It took me a couple of years to find my footing. It was you know, you hear about this term like spiritual psychosis, you know, where it's like you just, whoa, you're way, way out there. That's where I was. I was way, way out there. And it took me a while to get grounded. I was really, really fortunate that I just kept having people show up in my life who would like grab my ankles as I was floating away, like, come back down to earth, Ingrid. So I had a lot of great teachers and guides along the way. And I'm really grateful for my experience, especially because it helps me help other people wake up to their gifts to the same capacity that I am open to my stream and my channel, without the detour of completely losing the plot. Because I was no use to anybody for the first 2 years. I couldn't hold down a job. I couldn't stay like, you know, conscious all day. I mean, people would listen to me talk and I was having a great time up here in spirit. And they're like, oh, back away slowly, you know? So important to get grounded, because if we're not grounded, what use are we? And that's the point of these gifts, is to be of service and to help other people.
Beautiful. Yeah, totally. And you said something, this event that you went to and you were sort of blown wide open. What actually happened? Was it ayahuasca? Because I know a lot of people obviously.
No, it wasn't ayahuasca. I'm so sensitive. Like, I don't need any of that. You know, the mere suggestion, I'm out. Like, I'm into the stratosphere. It was a cacao ceremony of all things. Yeah. So, you know, cacao is chocolate. It's a heart opener. There's no psychotropic effects. I was just ready, you know? And I remember before I went to the event, I had a moment where I just said a little prayer before I went to the event, knowing that I was ready for a transformation. I said, I'm ready for a transformation. And so that was just the container that was used to give me that transformative slip. And it was so intense. I ended up on the floor with a woman over me. I didn't know this woman. I didn't know her name. She didn't know me. There's no registration sign up. There's no way she could have known who the hell I was, right? It was just like word of mouth stuff, you know? So I showed up there and she saddles up to me and she goes, hi. Oh, hi. She goes, would you like energy healing? And at the time I was like, what? Okay. Like, cause I was just exploring this. I wasn't in this world. And so she goes, okay, great. Lay down. And I said, okay. I laid down and she put a hand on my sacral and she put a hand on my heart. And as her hands, she's tiny, right? This adorable, tiny little woman. And I start feeling like energy shifting. It was like tectonic plates were shifting inside me. And I was like, that's intense. And she goes, and she goes, oh, your dad's here. So my dad died when I was a child, right? And I'm like, what? Say again? And she starts bringing through all of these details that she could not possibly know, and had me absolutely convinced she was connecting to the spirit of my father. And so at this time, like, I'm breaking open, I start crying, I'm like shaking, and then all the people are like putting their hands on me. It was very, very intense, like intense little bit there. And so I'm saying to her, I'm like, tell him this. And she's telling me this. And we're having this like mediumship session. And then her face goes completely blank. I'd never seen anything like it. It was just like, she just went vacant. And she went, nope, he won't talk to me anymore. He wants to talk to you. And I said, I can't do that. And as I was saying those words, I felt this light, this white hot light just move into my crown, down my body, and blast me open. Wham! And then there I was completely open and untethered. And that's when everything came online. And my journey to getting fucking grounded and reasonable began. That's how that happened.
Wow, that's amazing. I've never done a cacao ceremony, so I don't
Not
know.
normally that intense, I'm telling you. Normally it's very chill thing, but I'm very sensitive to cacao. In fact, a few years later, I was with a friend and she made me a salad and she goes, I put cacao chips on my salad. You want to try it? I'm like, sure. I put some cacao chips. I ate a few bites of that salad and I went wham. And I was like, I got to go outside, because all of a sudden all the spirits around on her property just came whoom, in super fast. So I think I have a particular sensitivity to it.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. I don't know if that's an allergy. What that is.
It might be, yeah. I'm curious. I don't know if it means anything or whether it would have been any different. Obviously, the woman who put her hands on your sacral and on your heart, and then your father came through. Do you think that the fact that she put one of her hands on the sacral, on your sacral, means anything? Do you think that's connected to your father the father in any way, or haven't you really thought about that? It's just
That's a
something
good
that's
question. I've actually never thought about that. And feeling into it, like I think she absolutely knew what she was doing because she was tapped into spirit. It wasn't a head thing for her. She just like looked at me across the room and went, that one. And so she just bam blasted me open. It felt very much like a soul connection agreement, if you will. You know how you have those moments where you're just like, okay, you and I met for that purpose and that reason, and now we can part ways. And it was literally like a moment or a day. It was like that. I don't know about the sacral. That's a really good question, and I'll have to feel into that. What I mean, what a great question.
Yeah,
It's your emotional center. So
it's your emotional center. Yeah. Yeah, feminine energy. And I think like interestingly, I think, losing for a girl to lose a father at a young age, it screws up her feminine energy. That's what I felt anyway. Like it took me a long time to get back online with my femininity, my feminine energy, that flow, that grace, that trust. I was very much in this sort of like anxious, rigid state, which is more of a masculine energy.
Yeah. That's just something that sort of, I don't know.
I love it.
These things jump out at me. But hold on, I just sort of reading the comments. Sarah hadn't heard these details before, Ingrid. So, but what was I going to ask? You mentioned the Bhava online sort of church thing.
Yeah.
How did that kind of start? How was it your idea? Was it something that
it was? Yeah, it's another great story. So I grew up pagan. Like we celebrated the winter solstice on the 21st, and we were very like out of, like, we didn't do churchy stuff. That was not a thing. So it was in 2017. I was kind of in this limbo place where things were changing with my spiritual work, and I didn't know where I was going next. Right. Like we talked about that. And I'm just sitting there just listening for spirit, and my spirit guide, his name is Monz, Monz. He came to me and very clearly said to me, Ingrid, you need to start a church. And I said, absolutely not. That's not gonna, nope. I am not doing that. I am not into like groups and joining and like I'm a lone wolf, right? Like I do my thing. And he just kind of went away, and I went, okay, all right, we're clear, So a few days later, I got another visit from him, and he said, Ingrid, you need to start a church. You're going to teach people how to do what you do, and you need to protect them. Very specific, right? And I went, oh, like a therapist has their license, churches ordain ministers. I wonder if that tracks. So I went Googling, and sure enough, it tracks, and an ordination provides a lot of, certainly in the United States, it provides a lot of protection for people who are doing ministerial and spiritual work. And I went, well, that makes sense, and since then it's become a lot more than just the practical nuts and bolts. Okay, this is why we're doing. We really are a community. We are a powerful, close, healing container that has just become a mind-blowing thing for us, and for all of us. But that when he said that, I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to start a church. So that's why I started the church. And the name came to me when I was sitting outside, and I had this experience. If you've ever had this experience where all of a sudden you're just filled with love, it was like I just my frequency just kind of did this full up thing, and I was full of love, and there was no reason for it. There was nothing that triggered it. It was just love without object. And then it kind of went down a little bit, and I came back into my normal frequency. I was like, that was very cool. What was that? And I sort of did some Googling around about it, looking for a term for what I just felt, because I was like, that's the name. That's the energy for the Bhava Spiritual Mission. And the word I found was a Sanskrit word called Bhava, BHAVA. And what it means, one of the meanings, well, it has a lot of different meanings. So one of the meanings it has in Sanskrit is love without object. Just love for no reason. So I went, okay, Bhava, and then spiritual mission was more interesting than any other phrasing. So that's why I went with that.
Oh, right. Okay, cool. That sounds great. And obviously, well, with your church, with religious churches, religious orders, they have, say, rules. There's sin and everything like that.
Yeah.
Does your
No,
does
we
yours have a
have all walks of
rule
life
or-
in our community. We have we call the dogma of no dogma. Essentially, our rules and regs are like, don't be an asshole, be a good person, be accepting. Like just the basic stuff that's really truly the thread of all spiritual practices and
Yeah.
religions. When you get down underneath the nonsense. So we have Christians in our community, we have New Age, we have pagans, we have witches, we have Christian witches. All walks of life are welcome in our community because we don't connect on the story, which is the dogma. We connect on the faith. And what we do as leaders in the community is we try and we successfully take our students and we help them unearth their power, their leadership, their authenticity, so they can really step into the highest expression of themselves, their happiest, most fulfilling life, and then be of service to the planet through the vehicle of their passion. So we're not in the business of creating followers, we're creating leaders. There is going to be a hierarchy in the beginning in the student-teacher relationship, but we don't love hierarchy. The goal is for our students to outgrow us. And then if you want to stick around inside the Bhava container and do this work with us, that's fantastic. If you don't, that's fine too. Go out, do your incredible, amazing work. Go where your heart pulls you.
I suppose, yeah, when they do that, it's almost like people come to you to, I don't know, free themselves almost of the circles, but you don't want to hold on to them because then they're just in another place where they're sort of not getting.
And then we've become this corrupt spiritual community, and you see that over and over again. Spiritual teachers, spiritual communities, it becomes corrupt very, very quickly. And so we, one of my board members now, what we do, every cult documentary we can get a hold of, we watch it and then we talk about it. Like, okay, what do we not do? How do we not become that? Like, we're really trying to stay super conscious of that, because I've been involved in a lot of different spiritual communities in my lifetime, interestingly, sort of dipped into a couple of cults, like around the edges. And so I know what it feels like. I know what it looks like. And I know what a turnoff it has been for me as a seeker, as a follower, and what a gift that is. Because now as a leader, a cultivator of that kind of space, we really, work hard to not do that. In fact, somebody, it's like, I hear, you're a terrible cult leader. I am. My son is like, Mom, you suck. You're a horrible cult leader. You do better. Just like, he's 18, he's funny as hell. But
yeah, so it's almost like you want your aim is to make it sort of a high turnover of people, because you want them to come in, learn what they've got to learn or do what they've got to do, and then go back out and share that. So you don't want people sort of, I say hanging around, but you know what I mean. You don't want you want it to be a revolving door where they come in, get what they need, and then go.
None of us on the leadership team are wired in that we like people depending on us. Some people are wired that way. They enjoy having people depend on them or follow them or kind of hang on their every word. And really, it's a gift of nature, is that none of us really like that. We're just thinking, yeah, you shake it off, like we want to empower people. We want to help people. We teach people how to identify what is truth and spirit versus their ego. That's the really important foundational piece, because we all got ego, and we all of our egos can get in the mix. And that's not what we mean. We don't mean follow your ego, follow your, we mean follow spirit, learn how to trust spirit. So it's about learning what's not spirit. Here's what your ego feels like. Okay, great. Now you know. Here's what spirit feels like. Yeah. Now, what are you going to choose? Now, we have an application process where, we interview people. We're very selective about who we bring into the leadership training in our community, because it's not for everybody. It's for people who have done a fair amount of spiritual work and are really looking to be of service, not for people looking to be seen as spiritual leaders, right? There's a distinction, and you can energetically feel that when you're talking to people.
Yeah, totally.
No, do they go to a website to find this? Where do they go?
Yeah, they can go to bhavamission.org. BH. Here, I'll put it in the private chat.
Okay.
And they can look at what our program entails. And and we're slowly building out more and more of the Bhava Spiritual Mission Church. We're looking to start more of like kind of a community, more of a community branch, if you will. Like this is the training program. And we know that we can connect and help people and inspire people in this incredibly potent transition period on earth to find their empowerment, to move from fear to love. So we go live on our Facebook pages once a month, and we do channeled messages, me and the alumni, the leadership team. And so it's slowly more and more growing out.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm proud of the Bhava Spiritual Mission. I'm proud of our leadership team. I mean, I feel like we've created something really magical here, and we're all really committed to keeping it that way. It's easy to corrupt this kind of thing. And
no, that's beautiful. Yeah, excellent. And speaking of channeling, actually, question just popped in. You said you do channelings, and I know you obviously do readings, and you channel anyway.
Yeah.
I just have. Firstly, I'm just wondering what would you say was the strangest channeling? I don't know why I feel like I want to ask that, but what was the strangest channeling that you've ever had, and do you know who it was from? Obviously, you don't have to name. If it was for a client, you don't have to name.
Yeah.
names
Okay. Let me think about that. The strangest channeling.
Well, the one that surprised you with the information that came through, that was most profound, or
so it's interesting because when I channel, I often don't remember what I channel because it's not coming from me, it's coming through me. So my clients will come to me and be like, oh my God, you were so right on with what you channeled. I'm like, was I have no idea what it was. I'm glad. That's great. But what I do recall, here's what comes to mind, and I think this is coming to mind because Spirit is wanting to bring it to the forefront. Back when Bernie Sanders was running for president. So what was this, 2016? Right? In the US, right? And Jimmy's like, but anyway, it was back then because I remember this because I was doing a reading for a woman and she was very upset because she was really, really scared. She has a lot of fear in her about the election at that time. And I just remember being around Bernie Sanders for some reason. I just remember him being a part of the mix. So she was really, really scared. She was scared for the planet. She was scared for the world. She was crying because she was so scared about who was going to be president, and she was really like in a lot of fear. And I remember Spirit came through and said to her, and this came from Divine Spirit, like my spirit guide. Spirit said, in 50 years, you will be integrating technology and nature in a benevolent way. And I remember that, and it immediately made me relax. And I don't have any fear about what we're doing with technology or AI, for example. It's like, I know, and we are, and now, 4 years later, 2020 hit, and I don't know, Thomas, you and I have talked about this, and Jimmy, you're probably on the same page too. It's like something shifted on this planet. Like we are moving into a new energy, into this incredible new earth, and it's a choice based on our energy. And whether we move from fear to love. And that new earth is brought in on the backs of the individual. So since I had that channeling, in 2016, and then we moved into this new energy, I have not been afraid that humans are going to screw it up. I think we're going to get this right. I feel like we're going to do this. Like enough of us are moving into love and waking up and tapping into spirit. I mean, how many people are waking up to their spiritual gifts right now is mind-boggling. So many pop, and I feel so grateful to be on the leading edge of that and assisting in that next evolution of consciousness. So that's the one that comes to me is like, it's like in 50 years, and I guess more like 40 years now, or like 45, we're going to be integrating technology and nature in a benevolent way. That feels yummy to me.
Yeah. I think a lot of people do worry about technology.
They do. And it's fair because humans are hardwired to resist change, which is weird because it's the only constant. And anything that is new and, on the bleeding edge every human is going to have a natural fear response to, a resistance to. We all do with everything. That's just, that's part of the survival mechanism. That's your lizard brain. That's not your forebrain. That's just the, okay, I have to survive. So I don't know what this is. So I'm going to have a fear response to it. So I have more alert, more awareness, right? But then what happens is we get hijacked by our fear brain, and the media doesn't help. You know, it's like we're constantly being bombarded with fear, 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 fear. So it takes quite a dedicated practice to consistently move from fear to love. I remember when I first started playing with AI, I had that fear response. I was like, whoa, this is intense, you know? And then the choice, and then it became a choice. Okay, do I stay in fear and go down the rabbit hole of the possibilities, which are real possibilities, like we could screw this up, or do I stay in love and see the possibilities for it? Like the benevolent possibilities and how this could help us. And for me, I am choosing to stay in that place of love and feed that love, because feeding it fear will only put me on the timeline of the fear. Feeding it love will put me on the timeline of the love. And we know about timelines, and just like we can be on any one of those we choose, and we have to choose. So that's how I try and live my life.
Brilliant. And is that how you view timelines? Do you, because there's something that I don't know, I think about occasionally about how they say everything's happening now, you know, all possibilities are happening now.
Yeah.
And trying to sort of logicize that or try to rationale that and imagine how that could be is kind of mind bending in a way.
Oh my God. It's totally mind bending. You just lose the plot almost immediately when you try to logic it out. Right? Just like, we are not designed to logic that out. I mean, I have a way that it comes to me that helped me understand it, that I could explain to see if it helps anybody else. Is, you know, we think we experience time in a linear fashion, but that's not how it actually works. Time isn't really a thing. So when I see it, I see like droplets, right? Droplets of time all existing all at the same time. So every possible permutation of every possible experience is happening all at once. And right now we're having this discussion and it's going a particular way. Like we're having the experience we're having of it in another drop of time happening at the same time, not linearly, but at the same time, we're having the exact same discussion, just going slightly differently. There's a slightly different turn of face, slightly different facial expression, giving us all a slightly different experience, like a out, right? And so every possible permutation of this conversation is all happening at the same time. And we shift into the timeline, if you will, or move into that drop of time that is a match for our frequency. Are we at a frequency of fear where we're having a more fear-based experience of this conversation? Or is it a frequency of love where we're having a loving experience? And then it takes us out into those in the now experiences of love. I don't know if that's helpful. It feels helpful in my own brain.
A lot of people think we're like, this has come from different channelers. I've kind of checked it too. A lot of people feel like we're repeating 2021's timeline. Like like CERN or someone, whoever runs things, not run, you get my point, the governments, they threw us into an alternate timeline in 2021, and now we're repeating the original timeline. Because I've been noticing, I've seen it with other friends, there's a lot of people that have been getting under the weather, if I can say the word sick on Facebook. So they've been getting sick, and it's not TikTok. So, and it kind of seems eerily similar in a way. I'm not saying it's going to be exactly similar. I don't feel that, but I feel that it's going this is something that's happening. Like they tried to change the timeline for some reason, be that political or whatever.
I don't know. I feel like, I think about you know how they say healing is a spiral, not a straight line. Like I could almost see like a revisiting of that energy for sure. But I also feel like timeline shifting is such an individual process, you know, and it's like, it's really about individual frequency. And I'm not sure I resonate with that entirely, but I don't see that it's impossible. You know what I mean?
I think certain people would stay on the old one and other people would move to the newer one.
Right. Because it is so individual. It's like the people who are on the frequency band that are like the same, could perhaps that could happen to a swath of people, but then the other people who are on a different frequency band, that wouldn't happen.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I guess in a sense, it doesn't really matter which one you're on, does it? Because
Because you can change it at any time.
yeah, and also like if we're in infinite beings and there is no time and we live forever, so to speak, our soul lives forever, then it can be anything. We can do anything. It's not as if we're running out of time to do anything.
Yeah.
Or the deadline.
I love
just
that reminder. Right.
It's kind of, it's almost as if I see and a friend pointed that out to me, that there's a lot of fear going around saying, oh, if we don't do this by this year or whatever, then this is gonna happen and you're not gonna get to go to the here, or you're not gonna ascend and all this. And you think that's just fear, because I mean, nothing lasts forever except for us. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. The essence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not as if someone could I mean, not necessarily all this ascension stuff. I don't know where I stand on that, to be honest with you, but if there is such a thing as ascension, I mean, who decided what ascension was in the first place, for a start? And secondly, why is there a time limit on it? If we last forever, if we live forever,
and time isn't a thing.
That makes sense.
I think that. Sorry. Well, I was going to say, I think fear is so insidious. It can easily wend its way into our spirituality too, our spiritual connection. And that's why it's a constant practice to move from fear to love. And that's the way that I see that. And for me, it's not either or, it's and. There's always an and here. It's not, this is real, this is not real. It's like, okay, there's a middle point, like where both things are true and then both things are also a lie, right? And when it comes to the ascension, like the chosen ones are going to ascend. I tend to feel like that is very much more in the fear band, and its fear has made its way into our spirituality. That being said, it's also like, yes, the chosen few are going to ascend, if you will. It's about raising our vibration. It's about moving into a vibration of love, a new earth, right? The new earth is happening. You're on board with it if you're moving from love. You're getting left behind, if you will, if you're moving in fear. So you see how it's like, in my mind, the way that I understand it is like, it's not either or, it's and. It's both. It's always both. And I just am always for myself, because I tend to be a fear-based person and my mind will tend towards the negative. Some people are just really optimistic naturally. I'm not. I have to train myself and work at it. It's a practice of mine to stay in that space. So I try and be super conscious of when fear is creeping into my thought processes or my spirituality or, my teaching or whatever it is that I'm doing. And when I look at the ascension model, if you will, of spirituality, I go, it feels fear-based to me, a lot of it. But I also don't disagree that with the frequency of the earth changing, the frequency of the individual matters. And I want to be on board with this new energy, which to me feels like community and unity and love, and not this old earth, which I'm perceiving as like scarcity and hustle and grind and fear, right? So I hope that makes sense.
Well, one thing, I met this lady in Louisiana when I was up there, and she's in her 70s, and we're talking about the 3D and 5D earth. And she's like, yeah, they've been talking about that since the 60s, 50s. And I was like,
wow,
so
I didn't know that.
They're not there yet. And people are still saying this is what we're moving into. I was like, shouldn't we be on like the 17th dimension by now?
What did she say?
Yeah, she's like, yeah, because they've been talking about this since the 60s. And I just found that interesting. I think humans got to quantify and use all these crazy definitions about what things mean.
Well, we get into our heads about it, and the mind needs boxes and containers to make sense of things. But creation energy has no such thing. You cannot quantify it with the mind. It's something that you can only feel. We feel it. We feel the truth of creation. And then we start to think about it or talk about it or describe it or write about it. And we lose a whole big chunk of it. That's been my experience of it. Talking about it is fun, but we also lose it in the process.
Mm. Yeah, it's always good to talk and
What's been
theorize.
sorry, Jimmy. What's been your experience with ghosts? That's what I'm being told to ask.
They're everywhere. There's as many of them as there are of us. They're basically harmless. Tell them to go away, they usually will. There's also assholes, like there are asshole people.
Like, how often do you see them when you're like out in public or when you're walking around?
I see them often. I often see them out of the corner of my eye. I call them friendlies when I see that. Like, oh, yep, there's ghosts. Sometimes I see them very clearly, depending on like the charge of the energy where I'm at. Like I've noticed in the southern United States, I see a lot more ghost activity and a lot more intense ghost activity than in the western United States typically. In the southern United States, in Tennessee and Georgia, where I was, when we were hanging out together, Thomas, like definitely that part of the country is like, yeah, there's a lot of intense ghost activity because there's a lot of like, it's more of a sad place, sad energy. It's like sort of dense, so I get a lot more of that Savannah. I was like, that's a lot, more so than like on the West Coast. But yeah, Laura, tell them to go away, and they usually do. Yeah, they actually can't read your mind. My understanding of what a ghost is it's a continuation of your physical incarnation without a physical body. How uncomfortable is it to be in the physical world without a physical body? You don't have any like control, this isn't your realm. So
One
it's
thing
not
that's
an easy
interesting.
experience. Sorry, go
One
ahead.
thing that's interesting. You mentioned this in Savannah because I took care of a mansion in Savannah, and she was traveling, so I was like, hey, stay here if you want to stay here. It was like 50 rooms.
It was
So
cool.
anyways, so you said like Mississippi in that area. I remember you saying this, Mississippi, Louisiana. This was like kind of the heaviest areas. I didn't really see that until I went to Mississippi, especially Louisiana.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Even Mississippi. I mean,
Yeah.
I went to a trail where they literally were like people, the African Americans are pulling sap out of trees. And like they're glorifying this. And I'm walking down this trail and I'm surrounded by ghosts everywhere. And my guides are like, open a portal. And I'm like, in the middle of the trail. So everyone walks through it. And they're like, yeah, these people need to go. And I'm like, this place, no offense to anyone, is more racist towards everyone than I've ever seen them in the South.
Wow.
For me, like in Georgia, but Mississippi, Louisiana, especially. But it's so interesting how much pain is there.
Oh, so much pain, so much sadness. Yeah, it's dense. Yeah.
So like being down, I never thought coming from Georgia, because you hear that about Georgia and stuff like that. But I was like, Louisiana is like a whole nother
Louisiana
level.
and Mississippi are more dense than Georgia, or Tennessee as well. I mean, Tennessee and Georgia are also dense, but Kentucky's pretty dense. I didn't spend a whole lot of time in Kentucky, but it's definitely pretty dense. Yeah. What about in the UK, Jimmy?
Sorry, what was that?
I imagine there's quite a lot of intense ghost activity in the UK.
There probably is. I can't say that I've noticed it. I don't really. I mean, sometimes I'll see things out of the corner of my eye. And you get it's more of a sensing for me. Though ghost hunting is, I think, it's probably big all over the world in a sense.
Yeah.
They have dedicated, well, they used to. I don't know about now because I don't watch much TV, but well, hardly any. But they used to have channels, TV programs. One was called Most Haunted, that were specific. I mean, how real they were, you can sort of make up your own mind. But it's fairly big as far as I'm aware goes. And they do paranormal nights and where they go to cemeteries or old abandoned buildings. And but as far as I know, I mean, I think it's probably the same the whole world over, pretty much. As far as they're just everywhere. So.
They are. They're everywhere. They're nothing to be afraid of, but of course they're scary when you you can't see them, or you don't know, and they can do little bits in the physical world, but I have not seen that a ghost can do anything substantial without a physical body. I think that you have a story. Okay, tell the story.
Yeah. In Savannah. Because I don't think people understand. Savannah is one of those haunted cities in the United States.
Yeah.
Every war was fought in Savannah. They bury people like a foot underneath the ground in these wars. So like everywhere you dig, I was convinced where I lived there was bones in the backyard buried. They said it was a dog. I don't think it was a dog. Anyways, but the point is that at night, and I'm hanging out there. I'd probably taken something that grows from the ground, but I was perfectly coherent. And I can say this on TikTok. A prostitute came in my door and was like, "I need to tell you who unalive." I can feel like I'm on TikTok. Who killed me? And I was like, "What do you want me to do about this?" Like, if I go to the cops and tell them this, some random person is sitting in this carriage house, and I know who, did it, and I don't even. I mean, I remember bits and pieces of this. And I was like, well, if ever I have the chance, I mean, if I can remember, sure. But that kind of stuff would happen in Savannah. I remember when we went to the second oldest African American graveyard that was down from Cameron's house. I still talk to Cameron. And that place was just full of all kinds of stuff.
I remember going there with you. That was intense.
Yeah, I went in there because my guys were like, take this and this and go in there and sit there for like an hour. I had all kinds of things trying to harass me, but I've never seen so much activity in one place. And I mean, I don't know if you've been down to like Marietta and Kennesaw in Georgia, but it's like all the kind of mountain, Stone Mountain, all the Civil War stuff down here.
Yeah.
Cherokee Indian Wars, all these things are down here. But over there, I was like, dear God, this is insane.
Dear God. Savannah was nuts. Yeah, it's not a lie. Yeah. Savannah was incredible. And also, like, I don't think I would want to be there for years at a time. Very intense energy. Interesting to visit, especially as a sensitive and a channel. You're like, whoa, but a lot of energy.
So things like poltergeists and everything that actually supposedly move objects and cause chaos and all of that. Would you say that they do have the ability to do that? It's just that you see it videos online or whatever, and you kind of, I think it's only fair that you question whether they're real or whether they're set up sometimes, because why does certain spirits have the ability to move stuff or have the inclination to do things or cause harm or whatever? That always makes me question whether they're real or whether they're fake, because obviously it's such a big business.
Yeah, again, it's not either or. It's and, like, the way that I see it. And my understanding is ghost spirits can move like a little bit. They can flip lights on and off. I've seen that. I've seen cups fly, that kind of thing. But they're not going to be able to like take down a wall. They don't have the ability to do that. Part of what gives a ghost energy, or, if we go even darker than that, an entity. So I differentiate those two. There's a ghost, which again is a continuation of our physical incarnation without the body. They're people just like you and me. Then there's an entity. An entity is dark shit. They don't belong here. And they're more, they like to whip things up. I don't think people should be as afraid of entities as they are. And I think, Thomas, you can attest to this, because when you are not in fear and your frequency is right, you have complete control over that situation. But what an entity will do is scare the shit out of you so that it then has control. And then more often, it's not the entity hurting you, it's you hurting yourself, because you're so whipped up. And what they'll do is, like, I mean, we know this to be true, and I know in my core, like, I have complete control over this physical domain. No entity can hurt me with where my frequency is at and, the love that I carry. But if it succeeds in scaring me, I then move into the fear band. And now, right? So you have to find a way to conquer your fear when it comes to entities. And they'll come, like, I had this entity in my home that came in. I watched that thing come in through the door on somebody, and I was like, oh damn, and it took me a minute to get rid of it, because it was all quiet during the day, but then at night, like 3:00 in the morning, it would wake me up. It would clap, it would poke me, it would like ring my doorbell, it would it would do things to scare the shit out of me. And at 3:00 in the morning, I don't care how cognizant I am of, like, you just have to conquer your fear, I'm scared. Like that's a human response that I cannot help. So finally, one of my students had actually practiced hoodoo, and she gave me a hoodoo ritual that I used to very effectively get rid of the spirit. And what that was is it wasn't so much the hoodoo itself, it was the ritual. It was something to house my faith, something to focus on so that I could overcome my fear, bring my faith into the mix. And then the entity had no chance. And then it was gone. And then I put my protections back up, and then it never bothered me again.
That's interesting. That I like that, because I think, I mean, I'm not saying that there's no stock in certain rituals, but do you feel like it doesn't necessarily matter what the ritual is?
That is how I feel. It doesn't matter what it is. It's your faith that's doing
the fact that it makes you believe that it's working, that has, and there's almost like a placebo in a sense, and people healing themselves, and if you tell someone they've got you swallow this, it's going to get rid of you or whatever.
And let's point out that a placebo does not mean it's not real. It means it is the power of your intention and your faith that is healing. But we hear placebo, we think, oh, that's not real, but it's absolutely real. So it doesn't matter what which is why, a Catholic priest can come in and do an exorcism effectively because of the power of their faith. And they're using their Catholicism and their Catholic dogma to, as a structure to move their faith and their power through. You can use anything. And it's like, it's like when you look at, we kind of broaden that out in not just from ritual. Ritual houses your faith. If you replace your faith with the ritual, you lose the ability. You lose your power. Same thing is true with spirituality and religion, which is why, kind of circling back to our conversation earlier about 5D and 3D and the ascension and, the chosen ones, what have we done? We've taken our faith and we have replaced it with this sort of story, this dogma. It's like, oh, only a few of us get to ascend, instead of the raise your frequency, move into love, and move into this new earth. There's a very different energy attached to that, but it's sort of the same thing, right?
Yeah. And speaking of love, and how do you, what's kind of your definition of unconditional love? How do you see that?
So I'm thinking about, are you guys familiar with human design at all?
Yes. We had Luca on a few weeks ago.
Okay, cool. So every time I think about unconditional love, I think about gate 25 in human design, which is called the love of spirit, I think. And the way that I read the description of that gate was something to the effect of, when you have that energy active, whether it's through transits or is active in your chart, you have the ability to love your child and a flower exactly the same amount, because it's all one. It's all the same. It's all God.
What about for those who who you consider to have committed to do evil, to do wrong? How do you view unconditional love towards them?
I try and remember that everything here is an experience. And from a cosmic perspective, there's no right or wrong or good or bad. There's just experience. There's just frequency, right? There's the fear frequency and the love frequency, and you're experiencing what you're experiencing. And it doesn't really matter in the scheme of thing what you choose to experience here. That being said, here's the and part. When somebody does something very, very wrong, there are consequences with the ways that we have our world set up. And that's good. That's a good thing, because the balance of the love and the fear and the love and the fear, it creates this ripple effect, which ultimately is taking us into our highest expression. And the story that always comes to mind is the story of Emmett Till. Who are you guys familiar? You guys are probably familiar with that story, right? Okay. So I think it was his name. Emmett Till was a teenager who went to visit in the 1950s South, right? Went to visit family in Georgia. I think he was from the West Coast. And I might have some of the details wrong in this story, but I'm going to tell it to the best of my ability. So he went to the South and he was just doing what he was doing. And a white woman accused him of hitting on her. And so that white woman's family broke down the door to, and Emmett Till's like 16 years old, right? Broke down the door to his house, dragged him, took him out, lynched him, hung him up on a tree, tortured him, just beat him to a pulp. And it was this really terrible event. Well, Emmett Till's mother brought him home to bury him, and she insisted on an open casket funeral. And everybody said, you can't do that. He looks like hell. She says, I want the world to see what they did to my son. And Emmett Till was the spark that ignited the civil rights movement, which ultimately changed everything. Right.
Okay.
So that's how I try and stay in a band of unconditional love. When there are horrible things going on and people are doing horrible things. Doesn't mean there aren't consequences, but when you pull it out
and bring it to light.
You can see it from a larger perspective.
Yeah, and people, you'd hope that people would see what's going on, and their consciousness or their morals or whatever would kick in and think we're not gonna let that happen anymore. We're not gonna stand for that, and so action is taken so that it doesn't happen again.
And I guess as we're talking about this, it's like a kind of a new sort of perspective is opening for me, in that like the fear is serving the love as well. So, maybe even I've been caught in that either or a little bit. Is like, okay, it's got to be love, not fear. Well, everything is serving itself. Everything's ultimately serving love. There's a purpose for all of it.
Yeah, cool. Like it.
I think even those stories need to be told. When I was in Savannah, I had a lot of African American Black people come up to me, and they were like, there's such a story here that they're not talking about, which involves like slavery and plantations and all this stuff. And I remember this may have been before you got there, after, I can't remember, or later, but they were like, you should tell the story. Because the thing is, you're in a position, being a white guy, where you can do this, and it's not going to shake the apple tree. It's probably going to piss some people off, but they're like, you're cool with that. So, like, just give it a whirl, see what happens. I never got to it, but I was like, man, if I do this, and I start exposing these secrets that no one seems to know about Savannah except like 5 or 10 people, like where they have an entire Black graveyard sitting in one of their most historical monuments that they won't mark off due to retail value, and plantation stuff, and then all the hanging trees that are everywhere. Like, I just should have probably filmed it all. I don't think people would have even understood that their favorite parks, there were like hanging trees everywhere. In front of their schools, there were hanging trees. But it like people there were furious. So, because some of those families that were there during those eras are still running the place.
Right.
But they've just kind of changed the narrative around. So,
It's interesting, because I always find it strange to some degree that only certain people are allowed to speak about certain subjects when we're supposed to be all one and we're supposed to be all the same. Whereas only, say, if there's a certain situation that involves one particular race, only members of that race are allowed to speak on it, and anyone who else speaks on it is considered racist or bad or whatever, and not, their opinions are not valid. But if we're supposed to be all one and living together and sharing and everything like that, then surely we should start acting like that. Instead of being divided and only being segregated into certain sections, and you can't talk about that because you're this and you're that, and it seems counterintuitive to living together as one and coming together to me. But I might be mad, but
well, I don't think you're wrong, but I think that when so for example, when a man speaks to a woman's experience and he's wrong, but like his mind won't be changed, that's where I think that people initially get mad. Is like, you're a white person speaking to the Black experience, but we're telling you that that's not correct, and you're not teachable. You're not learning. You're not helping. You're just spewing your opinion, which is not correct. That's where I think people, and then I think that has calcified into, okay, nobody speak on anything that's not directly related to them. And I think you're right. I think that if we're not all able to show up and ask questions and be teachable and be wrong and be right, and, you know, then it does slow down our expansion into oneness and true unity. But I think that's where where that comes from, that like, oh, don't say anything. And then people get scared, you know, to say something because they might be.
I guess the prerequisite and what we first have to learn is to have an open mind and be willing to listen to others and be willing to accept that we might be wrong sometimes, you know.
And not
we don't really know anything in a sense.
Correct. And not take it personally if you're wrong. Like it's not a big deal. It's like, oh, cool, new information. Yeah, and people like to attack other people on the internet to make themselves feel better. So if somebody is wrong, they get attacked. They get nasty things said to them instead of being educated, instead of being, you know, oh, okay, this is new information for me. Cool. I'm learning something by asking this question or making this statement. You get people coming on, you know, the fucking keyboard warriors who are behind a computer screen, don't have to face the consequences of their vitriol. You know, people don't want to deal with that. That hurts. The best of us. It's like, oh, that's nasty.
I asked them to come on camera I asked them to come on camera with me when
they don't. Right? Because they don't want to face the consequences.
There's been like 2 or 3 of like 500.
So some people have done it? That's amazing. How did that go?
No, I didn't take them up on it. But the point was, I just want to see what they would do because it shuts them down real fast. I'm like, I've told people, I'm like, let me bring you down to Atlanta. Let's go into church and do this. I'm bluffing the whole way, but let's see what's going to happen. And they're like screaming and yelling at me. And I'm like, well, maybe you shouldn't be posting that on the internet then.
People get big mad on the internet.
But
and when
I think
people are offended and triggered, remember that like when we trigger somebody, we are like, God is using us as an agent of change for that person. What they do with that is entirely up to them. But a trigger is an opportunity for really deep healing and clearing, to really let go of the nonsense that we, you know, pile on top of ourselves, to let go of a portion of that. But it's very hard when you're the one doing the triggering. And I know I do a lot of triggering, and I'm sensitive, and I don't like it. I don't like it when people are mad at me and they feel triggered and they're blaming me for, you know, whatever their you know, hurt feelings they have, because I'm never coming from a place of, oh my, fuck with this person, you know, that is never my intention. So it's not that easy to be an agent of change in the world, and through that agency be triggering people, be pissing people off. But you have to, in spiritual leadership, you guys know, we have to learn to let that go with love.
I guess it's a sort of a lesson, so to speak, for those who do the triggering, to learn how not to react and not to take things personally. So as hard as
because then you're getting triggered. Dueling triggers.
But people and we all get triggered. I mean, if you don't get triggered, you're Buddha or whatever. But I imagine he did as well, but I didn't know him personally. I might have done, I don't know, we probably all did, but I find it fascinating how there are some people who tend to trigger a lot of people, and it's not easy having to deal with the abuse that comes from that. And so because of that, a lot of people shy away. You can understand why, from saying anything or doing anything, because it's not easy to deal with. But
it takes tremendous courage to show up and be your authentic self. It really does.
Totally. What was I going to ask? Yes, chasing the sun, which
I'm trying.
I love the idea of it, and I'm sure people who are listening would kind of have maybe thought about doing this at some point. And but just explain to just tell us about your kind of chasing the sun and what that means, and your traveling and everything like that.
Right. Well, for the last 2 years, I've been nomadic. So I've been a full-time traveler. I started doing it. Oh, I took my Scion. You know what a Scion car is? It's this little box car, right? And I converted it into a micro camper. And that's when Thomas met me, I was in my Scion, right? Except when I stayed with him in the mansion. And then I didn't have to be in the Scion. So I traveled for a summer in the Scion and I loved it. I've always wanted to be a full-time traveler, but I was a solo parent, for almost 2 decades. So, and I did try to talk my kid into it a few times, and he was like, "No, whose kid are you?" He didn't want to do it, but he's grown now, and so I'm off like just doing full time traveling, and so I love the Scion so much that I upgraded to a van, which I actually got from me and Thomas's friend in Savannah. She had an old camper van. Needed some fixing up, so she helped out with that, and then I was able to take off into the sunset with the van, which has been really fun. It's the perfect size because it's not so big that it's unmanageable, but it's big enough to like be comfortable. Like I can stand up in it, and it has a kitchen and everything. So I've been doing that, and then I was telling Jimmy backstage that like I'm trying to chase the sun and avoid winter. I haven't pulled it off yet over the last 2 years, but I'm gonna, right? I'm gonna. But yeah, when I started traveling, I mean, I gave up my apartment. I took 90% of my possessions and I shoved them off the back of my friend's pickup truck. I just got rid of everything, just completely burned the place down, so to speak. I have a couple of things stored at my mom's house. And I just move. I love it. I love moving around the country and being on the go. It activates something in me, just like my creativity and my flow. And we have the most amazing experiences. I meet the most amazing people. I mean, I met Thomas because I was traveling and going through Savannah. He goes, we knew each other on Facebook. He goes, "You can come here if you want." Fabulous. It's like done, and then here we are. And I don't think this would be happening if, I hadn't decided to just give up everything and travel. And I don't know how long I'll be doing it for. I mean, at this point, I love it so much. I'm like, why would I ever want to give this up? But I don't know. People change, frequency changes. I'm open to anything and everything. I'm a very happy human. And part of that is just
There's something beautiful about having everything fit in your car.
totally minimalism.
'Cause I've been on this hotel excursion for like a year. So all over the place. But I was like, at first, I think Santa was 2 carloads to get there and then something like that. But then I was like, I have to get this down to 1. But everything can fit in my car in the span of like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
If I move fast enough, I can get everything in like 15.
Wow.
But I got to move super fast. But I keep everything in boxes and I know where everything goes. But but having all these things I thought I needed.
Yeah.
That like all these books, like hundreds of books and all these stuff. I was like, I don't even need all any of this stuff.
No.
Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it certainly shows you.
They need like all these things. So it's like I was trying to convince a friend of mine who has literally $100,000 worth of crystals. But I was like, bro, like if you need money right now, you should just sell all those things. He's looking at me like I'm crazy, but I'm like, brother, if you need money, like you have hundreds of thousands of dollars with crystals just keep going up there all the time after COVID. I was like, man, you make fortune. You might have like $300,000 worth of crystals. You don't need all. You can't take it with you. If you pass away,
can't take it with you.
Somebody else.
Yeah, I'm really a fan of like the minimalism lifestyle and like less and less and less and less because we don't need very much. And I have found that a lot of possessions tend to weigh me down. But I've never been a very materialistic person. It's not something that I have really worked with too much. But I love it. I have plenty of stuff in my van, so much. In fact, about when I get back to my van, I'm going to go through it and like get rid of stuff. So I'm like, okay, we got too much stuff now.
What are your favorite items? Is there anything that you would not throw away or?
So the things that I have a few books that I really treasure, and that my very most treasured possessions I actually have in storage, and it's not very much. It's like a bin in a box, and just things from my past, like my black belt is in a bin. I'm never going to get rid of my black belt that I got when I was 16. It's like a huge part of my life, but I'm also not going to carry it with me. Like I have no need for this. So little things like that and mementos that I have in storage. And then in my van, I have kind of a rollout altar, if you will. Like it doesn't stay up when the van is moving, but like these things matter to me. Just little incense holder and a stick of Palo Santos and maybe like a crystal and, just to put out and just carve out a little sacred space and then roll it up and put it away, space efficiency,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
How does the internet work when you're driving? Like, is it like Starlink, or you connected to this data?
So I don't use Starlink. I have Google Fi on my phone, so I can use as much as I need to data wise, and then I hop on Wi-Fi whenever I can. I know this is basic, but I have found Starbucks to be hands down the most reliable Wi-Fi on the go. I love cutesy little local coffee shops. I really do, but 8 times out of 10, their Wi-Fi is unusable. So if I need to work and I need Wi-Fi, I go to a Starbucks and then I can, sit there at the table. But also I can park my van outside and I can hop on their Wi-Fi if I need to do like a video call or a live stream. That often works, or if I have good cell phone signal, I'll just use the data and pay the bill.
Is that where you in Starbucks car park now?
No, I'm in Los Angeles. I'm at a house in Los Angeles.
Cool.
But yeah, my van isn't this cool, but I'm working on it. It's much more basic, like basic bitch stuff. And then what else was I gonna say? Yeah, I don't use Starlink. I've heard about it, but I haven't felt the need to use it yet. But I also don't go to super remote places, and that's Starlink internet is best for really remote places, is my understanding.
Yeah, I've been looking at like Google Fi and stuff because in these hotels, all the internet, I mean, it works, but it's like glitches and stuff like that.
Yeah, internet hotel tends hotel internet. Let me try again. Yeah, hotel internet tends to be crappy.
But the data never runs out, so. I mean, between 2 phones, I've got so much data, and I have hotspots and all that. But yeah, Google Fi thing.
You make it work. I mean, it's definitely not as convenient internet-wise traveling full time as just like being in one location and paying for internet. But the trade-off is worth it to me. I can make it work.
There's always a way.
Yeah.
There's always a way. So, let's have a look. So, if someone wanted to kind of start and do what you do, as in travel around the country in a van, what's the best way to start? Would you say, to tips wise? Do you have any little recommendations to start off with? How did you kind of start off?
I mean, for several years before I did it, I had been building an online business, and COVID actually helped with that because everything went online and made it easy for me. So, you have to have funding on the go. Some people like to stop in one place and make a bunch of money working jobs and then go out and travel and not worry about it. I prefer to have money as I go and just have the ability to continue to make money. So most everything I do is online. I do my Zoom sessions online. I do my classes online. I, do the live streams. So that funds and facilitates whatever lifestyle I want to live, whether I wanted to be in one place or traveling. And then, afterwards, you just have to do it. You're never going to feel prepared. You're never going to feel like you have enough. And you can just trust. Like for me, like if I have my phone and my wallet and my keys, anything else I can get on the road. It's like I can handle that. I can get that, you have to take a massive leap of faith and just have courage and just do it, because it's kind of like, said, when's the right time to have a kid? Never. You're never going to be ready to have a kid. When's the right time to give up your stability and go traveling? Never. You're never going to feel ready for that. But boy, once you do, like if it's something that you've always wanted, you're going to love it. People told me for a lot of years that I was wrong, that I wouldn't enjoy traveling full time because I needed more stability. That was a story that got stuck in my head. And so I questioned myself for a long time about whether I was actually going to whether I was actually going to enjoy it or whether it was going to be really hard for me. They were wrong. I was right. I love it. I love it. And like I said earlier, like I'm kind of like, I have like fears that I deal with, and I have a mind that I really have to work with that tends towards anxiety and fear. And you just do.
How do you, speaking of which, how do you learn to quieten your mind or calm yourself? What are the sort of the techniques that you use?
Meditation. Meditation has been critical in me learning how to get my mind under control and not believe the nonsense in the stories. And also I do a healing modality called Soulmatic Renewal, where you dislodge stuck energy in the body from your conditioning and your trauma. And the more that I do that, and the more that I meditate, and the more that I practice, the better things are with my mind. I am a person who tends towards anxiety. That's my jam. Other people tend towards more depression, but that's never been mine. I've always been like,
How do you view anxiety and the cause? Do you think there? I mean, obviously, there's more than one. But how do you view the sort of, would you say the root cause or causes of anxiety? Where is it diet? Is it the way our body responds? Is it out of balance, or is it?
I mean, I think it's multi-pronged. I think very sensitive people tend to be anxious because we have like this antenna, this super sensitive antenna where we're picking up every little thing. People who are very intuitive and mediums can have a lot of anxiety because we're unconsciously trying to push energy out, and that causes that feeling of resistance, right? Which is anxiety. The other thing is, and so that's the energetic standpoint. I think that diet and exercise can play a huge role as well as hormones. So especially, I think hormones for both men and women, but women in particularly, as we get towards middle age, our hormones start to do funny things. Or in adolescence, or if you have a slight hormone imbalance, that's something I've been looking at too, is like that can really throw things off as well. And then, also like it's, for me, I'm real, like anytime I start thinking or worrying about something I can't control, I have an anxiety spike. And when I remind myself that I cannot control that, the anxiety comes down, so it's a mental health piece as well. So I think it's a bunch of different parts working together. Nothing in the human body or the human brain, I think, is simple, straightforward, and one-dimensional.
Yeah, totally. I suppose, in a sense, we're made up of obviously we're made up of cells and different blood, all of that, bones, and each of them each of the little parts have their own mechanics and their own, they're alive, and so the micro makes up the macro, but then you got things that make up the micro, so each is a chain of things passing information on from one to the other and making it up, and so if we're getting a pain from something, that's whatever the place is sending us sensation, and so we're listening to that, and so it's kind of almost a big it's almost a universe within a universe within a universe.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
I've said that use that exact phrasing. It's like everything is sentient and inside. Totally.
And who's to say that the world that we live in is not just one cell or one part of something else that's bigger? Why are we, you know what I mean? It's kind
maybe
of
we
like,
are the bugs on the animal.
Yeah, we're kind of exactly. It's just strange, and the only reason I say it, I saw something the other week where they were talking to AI, and they said, show me a picture of the Earth, and they said, right now, show me a picture of zoomed out a bit more, and it showed sort of the globe that they show us, that whatever, and then they zoomed out a bit more, and it said, show us a picture of zoomed out a bit more, it showed the picture of the galaxy or whatever, the alleged galaxy, and then they said, show us a picture zoomed out a bit more, and it showed, and eventually it got to a stage where they zoomed out and the AI produced a DNA strand, and we're part, and it's, but I mean, this is just AI, AI can be programmed, obviously, and it just goes on the information that is fed, in my understanding. But it made me think, it's like, what if we are just a part of a DNA of something else that's a lot bigger, and we're just one of the cogs in the wheel? But then again, you think, well, where does that end? Does it go, it's infinite in a sense. It can go, there's things that goes infinitely small and infinitely large, and I mean, it's just, like I said earlier, when thinking about the thing, it's mind-blowing.
It is.
Thinking about,
they took a picture of the universe and they found it looked like a DNA strand.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen that, but I'm pretty sure that there's some kind of scientific backing to that.
Wow.
Jake says the DNA helix is the most efficient way to store information. Yeah. So I just, even though, will we ever find the answer? Do we need to find the answers? It's just a question of, how important it is. Do you want to? So if it's just about experiencing and enjoying the experience or learning through experience, then I guess we don't necessarily need to know.
There's a certain beauty in like,
in discovery.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. So it's just fascinating.
It is.
For people who like contemplating things, I guess it's sort of a never-ending gift, I suppose, in a sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. Anyway, just some thoughts. Is there anything else, Thomas? You got anything else you want to ask Ingrid? Or?
I'm good. Where are you gonna be next? Where are you at now?
I'm in California. I'm going to Honolulu for my birthday in April, which will be pretty cool. I'm going to go hang out with my.
Nashville. I saw you preaching, or not preaching. I saw you talking to a bunch of people.
I was preaching. I don't know what I was doing. Yeah, I was in Nashville for 3 months. I was helping my son, supporting my son get set up there. He's living there now. And so I'm going to Honolulu next, and I'm going to be with my Bhava babes. We're going to do a spiritual retreat there. The full solar eclipse is actually happening on my birthday. So that should be some pretty awesome energy we're going to cultivate there.
Yeah, nice. Excellent.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty cool. And do you want to just remind us sort of where we can reach you? If anyone wants to
so thanks for putting that on the screen. You can go check out our organization, the Bhava Spiritual Mission. We just started a new group, but we are always taking applications, and we start a group every 3 to 6 months, depending on, how we just how the winds blow. So you can, if you're interested in joining our leadership community, our training and certification program, fill out an application, and we'd love to hop on Zoom and chat with you and talk with you more about that. You can also learn more about me and some of the other courses that I offer, and book a reading with me on my website, which is ingridhturner.com. And don't forget the H in the middle. It's for my middle name, Heidi. So ingridhturner.com. And of course, find me on Facebook. I am also on TikTok. I'm on all the major platforms. Come find me. I cannot wait to connect with you. Thank you so much, Jimmy. Thank you so much, Thomas.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate you. This has been fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for watching and for all your comments and everything like that. And we'll see you again next week.
Yeah. Find us on Spotify, people.
Spotify.
All right. Au revoir.